I see a lot of entitlement, especially in the young generation, where it's just like people can do things for me. I'll take things from other people. And I don't think that that is the attitude of a country that's going to be sustainable. We've got to have problem solvers. We've got to keep innovating, but we've got to keep that going. I don't want to lose that. That's special.
Welcome back to the OpenEd podcast. I'm Ella, your sometimes host, and today I'm joined by Katie Kimball, who's here to talk to us about life skills. Life skills are one of those things that, sometimes you just don't think about. You don't think about all those little things you just know how to do. And teaching your kids those things are so important. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And how long have you been doing this?
Ooh, Ella, I've actually been online since 2009, so I'm a little bit of an OG when it comes to the internet world. It's funny because I feel like I'm still a rookie because everything changes so fast. Like you're constantly having to learn new things. I've been teaching kids to cook for 10 years. So I started out online helping families stay healthy without going crazy. When I had my first baby, I sort of had my real food awakening and I burnt everything and I took forever to like make real food and to cut up vegetables. And I'm actually a teacher by training and a teacher by heart. And I just kept thinking, gosh, how could I make this easier for other mamas? Like, can they learn from my mistakes maybe? And so that's where I started. And then I kept hearing the same story from moms. They would say, Katie, I really want to get healthy and cook healthy, but I was never even taught to cook at all. And that's kind of like our generation was a little bit skipped. I think our mothers, very well intentioned, wanted our childhoods to be easier than their childhoods. In so doing, they skipped sort of teaching us basics of cooking and household chores, and they made our adulthoods harder, like on accident, no blame. But a lot of us went into adulthood like completely bumbling around. And I realized that if we're not comfortable in the kitchen, we're certainly not teaching our kids. And so somebody had to step into the gap so that 20 years from now, the grown-up children aren't saying, oh gosh, I wish I could get healthier, but I was never taught to cook. So that's kind of where Kids Cook Real Food started, and my kids and I made this whole cooking class. And then I hear from so many parents about their needs. And so over the last 10 years, we've just shifted a lot in how we serve people. We still teach kids to cook, but we also added life skills.
Wow. Okay. So it started with a need that you and your family had. And what did that look like? So like how did you even begin to like build out this whole, I don't know, experience of teaching kids to cook? So you started with a problem.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, I don't know how to cook that well. Like I'm learning. I might as well take my kids along on the journey. Or like, how did that go?
Because I'm a teacher, so like my college degree is actually in teaching. I've always known since 5 years old, like I'm going to be a teacher. And so when I first had kids, like I was in it to win it, man. I did all the things. I loved the Montessori system, which talks about practical life skills. And so my first child was like using a little knife at age 18 months. He just did everything with me. But once I had two, I realized that was a little trickier. So little sister, when she was 18 months, wanted to like climb up on the chair and do what big brother was doing. And I gave her, like, he was using this dull cheese knife. It sounds funny, but it's just like the perfect size for little hands. And it's fairly dull. Well, I handed her another cheese knife. It was not dull. She cut herself within like 30 seconds. And I just thought, like, I'm a failure. I can't do this. It totally stressed me out. And so I pulled back a little bit from how much I involved my kids. Like I still was involving them, but then I had baby 3, I had baby 4, and I just forgot. I just forgot to keep teaching them once life got moving so fast. So there was actually a moment when my oldest, Paul, was in 4th grade. They had to do like end of the year how-to speeches for their class. I don't actually homeschool, but I work with a lot of homeschoolers. So I got to go into school because you cannot put a chef's knife in a 10-year-old's backpack, like just a thing, So I got to see him teach his class guacamole, and I was super proud of him. He like took the chef's knife, opened the avocados, waxed the pit out of the avocado, and like the other adults in the room are like, and I love that. And like I want to raise the bar for our kids. But then I sort of had my own moment where I went, oh my goodness, guacamole is the only thing he knows how to make. And it's the thing he's been making since 1st grade to like impress everyone. I thought, okay, like I've gotten 8 years left with him before he's 18. I probably should sort of get back to this whole teaching them to cook. And so that was actually right before we took that summer, and I taught my kids to cook really intentionally, got my teacher hat back on. We actually invited neighbor friends over so that they would be more motivated and so that I wouldn't skip it, because that, like, my own life hack. I know that if it's just like in my own calendar, I'd be like, I don't really want to do that today. Maybe we won't do our cooking class. So like I had other families depending on me. So then I had to do it. So that's where this all started. And those are the kids. My kids and our neighbors are the kids in the Kids Cook Real Food e-course learning along.
That's awesome. Were your kids already, like, bought in, or did you have to, like, convince them to, care about cooking at all?
They were still young enough at that age. We know, I mean, research kind of tells us that when kids are little, they have this wonderful intrinsic motivation. And if we can capture it when they're little, it's almost like we keep this unbroken line. And then when they're 8 or 10 or 12, they're still at least somewhat motivated to help. The flip side is if you say to the kids, like, no, 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 you don't belong in the kitchen, go, it's mommy's got this, you go play, that kind of trains their brains that that's not what they're there for. And then at age 10, if you're like, hey, you want to help? They're like, no, I don't. So my kids were involved enough that I think and again, and I invited the friends for that little boost of motivation. So it wasn't really too bad. Most of them, like right now, so now we're 10 years later. My kids are 10, 13, 16, and 20. And I think they're all very proud of what they can do in the kitchen. Like John is kid number 3, and he'll say things sometimes like, I don't think most of my classmates know how to do this. And I'm like, that's cool. I love that he sees that and he just feels like this is something that he has, a competency that he has, and it really raises his feeling of self-worth.
I love that. And I was doing some digging on your websites, and something that was really apparent was how much confidence you continued to bring up, like confidence in cooking skills, but confidence in life skills. What is the value of having confidence in life skills for kids?
That was such a pleasant surprise, to be honest, because I thought I was just teaching kids to cook for like the practical reasons. They'll know how to feed themselves, they'll eat healthier, they can help a little around the house, and that's nice for moms and dads. And then we start working with all these families, right? And people are teaching their kids to cook at age 3, at age 10, and we'd start hearing stories. Like, oh, my kid's so proud of themselves. They just feel so confident now. And I started to realize, like, I was watching it happen. And then later it's been confirmed by, like, a sociologist or a psychologist that I interviewed, that, like, we have this one bucket of confidence. And so when your kids are building skills and competency in the kitchen and that raises their confidence, it actually applies to their academics and their social lives and the way they interact with adults. It's amazing. And so, yeah, pretty quickly within a year, I realized, whoa, cooking is more than just food. Like, this is a huge, huge sort of sandbox for teaching kids how to fail, how to really raise those competencies and raise that confidence. I feel like today we look at our stats on anxiety, Ella, and it just breaks my heart. Like I just saw that America has fallen off the list of top 20 happiest countries in the world. And it's because of the kids in their teens and 20s. Their anxiety is so high that they're not reporting a general sense of happiness and well-being. And that's so sad. So, like, there's a bunch of reasons, right? People will pin it on screens, social media, etc. However, we also know that we've kind of gone through this phase of participation medals and trophies for everything. And unfortunately, when we praise everything, the kids feel that now nothing really matters. And when we bubble wrap our kids, when, a lot of parents are very safe and very protective, and we call it helicopter parenting, again, super well intentioned. Like, parents aren't going out to be like, oh, I'm gonna mess up my kid and helicopter parent. They're just like, I want to keep my kids safe. It's my job to keep them alive. But it actually makes kids really anxious when people are doing everything for them. And when they feel like the world is a very scary place because we have to be kept safe, both of those things are kind of like attacking them in the same way. So if you feel like the world is scarier than it actually is, and you feel like you don't really have agency, you don't really have skills to take care of yourself because someone else has always done it for you, you're kind of like wandering about the world feeling really anxious because you have no control. And so we've got to give the kids like these skills and this feeling of like, I can fail, I can burn the biscuits, and it's not a huge deal. I could still make better biscuits the next time. You know what I mean? Like, we want our kids to fail with when the stakes are really low before we hand them the car keys and the fully unlocked iPhone. Because then the stakes are really high and they need to know how to take risks appropriately with things like a chef's knife or a paring knife or, a hot stove before they're taking risks again, like behind the wheel of a car.
Were you teaching yourself like during this period where you were coming over here and you were saying, okay, now I'm going to start teaching the neighbors' kids and I'm going to start teaching my kids? Were you learning alongside them? Were you learning ahead of them? Like map out for me that whole summer. Did you just like sit down and you said, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build this out, I'm going to pick like one project per, say a few weeks, few months, and then just invite everybody to it, and then I'm going to have like uh this whole lesson plan basically built out? Like, what was that like for you? And then also just like getting into the nitty gritty, because I know that there's a lot of families that are like, okay, how would I even do something like this if I wanted to? Or like, let's say that there's a mom who has maybe some really awesome experience in maybe music, right? Like that
Mhm.
was her background. And she wants to teach her kids it, but she's like, I don't even know where to begin. Because you're right, like giving your kids experiences in any direction is just so good for them. And especially whenever you have some knowledge to share or you have some wisdom in a certain area, like it's really cool. And then I really love, which I'll come back to, but like you're bringing your kids into this mission that was your own first, which is I'm
Mhm.
going to become a better cook. And then like bringing them into it afterwards. But initially, like, what did it look like just on the practical side?
This is such a fun question because I don't usually get to talk about the inception of everything. I will say that when my kids were babies, again, I was not a very good cook. Like, I can picture turning the blender on without the lid on and stuff hitting the ceiling. Like, that's how bad I was, Ella. It was really serious. But I'm a lifelong learner. So by the time I was really working on teaching the kids that particular summer, I'd been like writing online about cooking and food and nutrition for 7 years. So I was pretty competent at cooking. Like, I wasn't burning stuff anymore, at least.
That's
Um,
awesome.
what was interesting though, because even though I'm a teacher and like one of my superpowers is the ability to break down big ideas into tiny chunks and to understand what my learners are thinking and kind of maybe what angle they need. But that's where the collaboration really happened. The kids helped me learn how kids learn to cook,
Mm,
right? Instead of how parents learn. And I think that's the huge challenge for parents. Like you said, oh, maybe someone's very good at music, or maybe someone is a super good organizer, right? Like, you can organize your own stuff really well. But to figure out how to like almost unlearn it back to step one so that you can explain what you are super good at is very difficult. And for me, it took a lot of listening. The kids actually helped me co-create some of the fun phrases we use. So part of the Kids Cook Real Food e-course is we name everything really fun. So we hold food like up and over soldier, and we have a tug of war pull knife move. We have like 7 ways to hold the food and move the knife. We call the measuring cups the dad, mom, the kid, and the baby, because we were trying to figure out, I was trying to figure out, like, for the 4 and 5 year olds who they don't know fractions. So I'm like, how do I figure out, like, explaining a half teaspoon and a quarter teaspoon to them? Because they don't know these words. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where then, like, the little bit older girls, the girls were 7 at that point, they actually came up with dad, mom, kid, baby, which is like the foundation of almost everything I do for the littlest kids, because I just want it to be so accessible. I don't want I don't want abbreviations like TSP period to create a roadblock to a kid accessing a recipe. So like, we write everything out. And the fractions were a roadblock for little kids. And so immediately, like, ooh, dad, mom, kid, baby, the kid gets it within 20 seconds. It's so easy. And so that's what was really fun collaborating with them, is to create this fun language where parents can, like, and because this is the joy too. A lot of parents are like, oh, like, it's so hard to have kids in the kitchen because they're in my way. They're slowing me down.
exactly.
I'm stepping over them. And so I'm a big fan of putting the kids at the kitchen table. It's the
Mm,
right height for them, actually. It's much safer. Like, their elbows aren't way up by their noses at the counter. And they're out of the adult cook's space. And when you have a common vocabulary, you can sort of just glance over to your kitchen table and say, "Oh, honey, grab the mommy spoon," or "Are you snow plowing your flour flat?" And again, like the knife hold, oh, you're cutting a tomato, you need a saw blade move. That common language makes it super easy to communicate across the space. So mom can still be working at her speed, doing 90% of the meal. And the kids are just like littlest ones, especially like they're just contributing a little bit, which is perfect because when the meal's finished, then you get to say, oh, like this soup is so good. I think it's the seasoning. Like who measured the oregano on this one? Right. And your 3-year-old is like, it's me. I'm the most amazing person in the world. So with the little kids, like they don't need a huge contribution. They just need to contribute. Which I think, again, that was what was so fun about putting this together is that the kids really did contribute to it. And so the kids understood what other kids would need. And I think that's what makes Kids Cook Real Food really special is that it's made for kids of all ages with these really fun phrases and then very much of a structure. I sat on the floor with index cards to figure out like how should these skills fit together in different ages and stuff. But that's the gift I like to give to parents is like you don't actually have to think about how you present it to the kids. You don't have to think about how you break it down because that's all done. Like you just get to turn on a few videos and learn together with your kids. So a lot of parents will say, I'm not a very good cook, Katie. I'm very nervous about, teaching my kids to cook, but they don't have to be a good cook. So families learning together, it's like the most beautiful thing, right? For a kid of any age to see like my mom or dad is still learning. That's awesome.
I love that. Serious question. What do you do about cleanup? Because cleanup is sometimes so frustrating.
So hard. Yes. And that's another roadblock for parents is like, my kids are going to be so messy. Um, right now, again, my kids are older. And so the older 3, they each make 1 meal a week. And our rule in the Kimball house is if you make the food, you don't have to clean up. So that's part of motivating too, because nobody likes to do dishes around here. I don't know if that's just us or if that's worldwide. But if they cook, they don't have to clean up. And it's actually like, I do hate doing dishes, but when I'm doing dishes and my child has cooked a meal, it's so much easier. Like it's almost
Mhm.
a joy, almost, almost a joy. So there's that. Uh, yeah, kids are pretty messy. With the littlest ones, I'll tell parents to put down like a big cookie sheet if they're practicing measuring those spices, and you use a little spill bowl so that I don't want a 3-year-old measuring directly into the pot without any supervision because once 2 tablespoons of oregano goes in and you needed 2 teaspoons, you're stuck, right? So we just have them measure into a little dish, and then mom or dad can be like, "Yeah, that's pretty close." You know what I'm saying? And if they're on a cookie sheet, it's so quick and easy to clean up. And so you can set up like a little center for kids where they can practice pouring with dry rice or with water, not at the same time because then the rice isn't dry. But as long as you have that like rimmed cookie sheet underneath, cleanup is a snap. And we teach our kids to clean up too. It's their least favorite part, but that's life. Right? So I'm kind of big on saying like, well, we all ate. We all need to clean up. We are a team here. And it's okay. If you don't want to load the dishwasher, that's fine. But tomorrow you might not have a plate. This is real life and there are genuine natural consequences that happen if you never clean up. So I don't know, maybe my daughter says I'm very strict. But I think that we can hold our kids to high standards and they should see the process all the way through. They should learn genuine life skills and sometimes they're fun and sometimes they're not, and that's okay.
I think the great part about life skills whenever you're growing up, so like your parents and your family, you set the standard, like you set a culture and you set a
Yeah.
standard, and then when a kid goes away, like when a kid grows up, they can choose to not continue the standard.
Mhm.
Um, but what's funny is like, well, the gift is that you allow them to choose that. Like the hard part is when you don't give them these life skills that they need, they can't make the choice. They just don't have the skills. And that's a really difficult spot to be in, is to just not know what you don't know, and to not know how to solve it. And what's cool too is usually it's just a period. Like usually things work better whenever you recognize there are natural consequences. If I don't clean up, I'm not going to have plates tomorrow.
Right.
Right. And like just having that as like a built-in understanding, and accepting the fact that like you're going to do this because you can think long term and you want plates tomorrow. And like that is as simple as it is. And as somebody grows up even older, it's like, okay, well, then they meet somebody, and then there's two people in a house, and then there's three people in a house, and like
Mhm.
everything just you give kids skills for their future families too, which I think is really, really great. What other skills were key for you, at least, like whenever you were thinking back to the experiences that you had growing up, the things that your parents didn't teach you, and the things that you wish that they did? What were some of those key things?
Whew, taking care of a house has like 11 dozen steps. I
Yeah,
mean, there's so much,
seriously.
so much. And that's where I really see the parents in my community, they desire their kids to have life skills. Like that's the good thing. I'm really seeing this deep desire in families nowadays. Not all of them. Like some parents would be
Hmm.
very happy to just hand their kid a phone or a tablet and put them on screens. I don't think that's your audience. Like that's definitely not my audience either. And and so yeah, we need, first of all, there's like high level life skills on how to think. So we've got to help our kids build a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. So I put
Hmm.
yet at the end of just about everything. Like,
I
oh,
love that.
this is really hard, mom. I know that's hard, honey, because you don't understand it yet. Right? Or you're still learning, you're still working on things. I try to just pour words like that out of my mouth to my kids because they get stuck in a fixed mindset. I'm so bad at this. I can't do this. And I'm like, oh man. So growth mindset, huge. The the sense in yourself that you can solve problems and that you can try things.
Mm.
That's huge too, because I do see a lot of kids who are very hesitant, very tentative. They're not going to problem solve. And so to show your kids something that you're not very good at, we just had to have a couple bathrooms redone because we had a toilet leak, gross problem. And my husband has been trying to finish off the last little bits without calling in another contractor. So he's trying to put sinks together and they'll leak, or he has to go back to the hardware store like 3 times. And it's been very frustrating, but I hope it's good for our kids to see that like dad keeps trying. He actually ended up pulling in the 20-year-old who finished it off for him, which I'm like, okay, good. Like now
That's
the
awesome.
20-year-old has more skills. But just that sense of like, man, this is not working. What else can I try? What other information can I gather? What other experts or people can I talk to? So that didn't really answer your question, but I think we don't really know for sure what exact practical skills our kids will need 20 years from now. Technology is changing so fast. Maybe they won't need to know how to sweep because everyone will have a robot made. I don't know. But I think they need to learn how to sweep now and how to dust and how to clean a gross toilet just so that they can learn how to learn, and so that they can learn also that skill of like noticing, oh, this is gross. I have the skill to fix the grossness. I shall now fix the grossness, right? Like I shall now clean the toilet. Um, because that's huge for kids.
Mhm.
Observation. I have 3 boys. Observation does not seem to come naturally to the male gender. It did for my daughter. I don't know if that's true for everyone, but those skills of observation, of like, I'll tell my kids like scan the room. What do you see that's out of place? What do you see that belongs to you that you could put away? So there are a lot of like, again, really high level sort of thinking executive functioning skills, but we learn those skills through doing the basic practical things
Yeah.
of washing dishes, of, we, in our life skills now summer camp, which we haven't even talked about. So the life skills now kind of grew out of our cooking class and hearing from my community, like, I really want my kids to have life skills. That's why I'm teaching them to cook. And I thought, there's a lot of other life skills. Maybe I can help with that. So I actually pulled together other experts because I'm not a finance expert. I'm not a gardening expert, sadly. So I bring together like 50 to 70 experts every summer, and we create a massive set of 100 different skill workshops. And it's awesome. Like, even the idea of having 100 skills, like, probably no parent knows all of them. So it's this beautiful opportunity for kids to be like, well, I can try this. I can get exposed to, podcasting, or I can get exposed to video editing, or get exposed to the idea of saving my money or giving generously. We have this awesome finance track. And in doing all these little skills, whether they will actually need them or if AI will take over some of those skills when they're grown-ups, they learn how to learn, they learn how to problem solve, and they learn how to trust themselves to do things. Like, that sounds so simple, but gosh, if all kids could just believe that they had the agency and the ability to try stuff and see what works, the world would change.
How?
How would the world change? Oh, I see a lot of entitlement. sadly, now, especially in the young generation, where it's just like people can do things for me. Like I will take, government handouts, I will take things from other people. And I don't think that that is the attitude of a country that's going to be sustainable, right? Like if we look back to the origins of America and our history, people really had to say, I don't like what's going on with England. And we have a million opportunities here in this new land, but what are we going to do with it? They had to take so much agency and so many risks. And I do worry that if we have kids and who grow into young adults who are afraid to take steps, who are afraid to talk to other people, who are afraid to call for pizza, then we're just going to kind of become a nation of sheep. And that's scary to me. That's not a nation of free people. So we've got to have problem solvers. We've got to keep innovating. I mean, we are an amazing, like when you talk with people from other countries, they'll say, yeah, like in America, there are innovators and there are entrepreneurs and there's this whole spirit of like can do attitude. They don't necessarily have that in other places, which I think is why many, many inventions do come out of America. But we got to keep that going. I don't want to lose that. That's special.
Interesting that you say that. So I've been reading some books on topics like this recently, and something that's really stuck out to me is this like concept of care. Like caring really matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like having individuals that care about their society, that care about their communities, that care about the people around them, that care about making things better. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, but I think something else that you alluded to is people that have this deep sense and belief that I can influence X. I can influence my community. I can influence my, local neighborhood. Like I can influence these things. I think in a lot of ways, I've definitely seen that spirit dwindle. And I think what you're teaching kids to do is to not only be able to care, like to see the things. Like I grew up in a family. I also had three brothers, and like my mom took care of a lot of things, and that was like the best thing ever because my house was clean and we had food and it was awesome. And I know that it was very difficult with three boys and all their messy friends, but like on the other side, I know that each of my brothers grew up not really knowing what went into making our house work and function.
Mm-hmm.
And I have other friends who are very, very aware, like boys and girls, who are very aware of how their house functioned and like the just the difficulty that it took for like us to grow the spirit of like, okay, what does it mean to care? Like, what does it mean to say, okay, this space is not clean? Like, if it's a local space, for example, like maybe somebody left a mess, just like being that good steward, being that good person
Mm-hmm.
that says, okay, I'm just going to clean it up because I'm going to leave it better than I found it. And like knowing how to do it and knowing where to go or what to do. I just think that's so important. And underappreciated, just I guess today
Mm.
especially, but
I love thinking about that, is that attitude of caring, and I would say ownership as
ownership,
well,
yes.
taking ownership of your space. The opposite of care to me would be apathy, and, oh, it kinda breaks my heart to see how much apathy it's kind of spreading like a virus right now. I'm seeing it in the little kids that they just don't care about their school, their grades, their academics, they don't care about other people, but I'm seeing it in adults too. I've been working with parents of picky eaters for, like, 5 to 7 years, and it's so interesting just as a business person to watch. Like 5 years ago, people were very concerned about picky eating. They were coming to me with like average picky eaters, like, oh, my kid eats mac and cheese and chicken nuggets, and I wish they would eat more vegetables, but yeah, they eat peas, or they eat, they were average picky eaters. And I saw this weird shift over 5 years where I have far more parents who want help with very, very severe picky eaters. Like my kid will not touch a single vegetable, and I'm like, ooh, okay. um but I don't see as many of the average picky eaters, and I was thinking, like, are the picky eaters getting worse? A little teeny bit, yes, but what I have personally diagnosed, what I'm seeing is that it's apathy. That the parents of the average picky eaters, they don't actually care that their kids aren't eating very many vegetables. They just think it's okay. It's like the new normal. The standard has been lowered, and I think I'm seeing that with a lot of things where parents are like, I don't really care how much screen time my kids have because they're out of my hair, right? I don't really care what we're eating because we're very busy and we're doing, sports and travel sports and stuff. Like there's
Mm.
and again, I don't think your audience is those people, but we're surrounded by them. And this sense of apathy, like nothing good can come from that. I don't even really want to predict what will happen if more and more, the majority of Americans are just feeling apathetic, don't care, don't feel like they can change things. We've got to have both the mindset and the actual skills to make change happen in our communities.
That's very fascinating. I haven't heard anything like that. And it's curious to hear, or it's really cool and interesting to hear that comes from specifically your experience. So it sounds like what you're saying is that for a lot of families and people, like the cost does not outweigh the gain, right? But like, would you say that part of a parent's job and part of a parent's opportunity is to paint the gain and make it super enticing? So like, right, the parent that doesn't really care that much about the lack of a kid eating vegetables, it's because they're telling themselves, that my kid will be fine, like it's going to be fine, it's
Right.
not that big of a deal. The parent that doesn't clean frequently or whatever, like they're usually saying like it's not that big of a deal. Or the
Right.
parent that say isn't very active in their community and like doesn't take ownership of their local neighborhood or whatever it's going to be. um Oftentimes the excuse is somebody else will do it, right? And
Yeah.
like and like it's interesting because as a family you have this opportunity to like paint this picture of here's what it could look like this is the best. And once you give your kid a taste of the best, it's really hard to go backwards. Um but do you think, would you agree that like maybe one of the issues is that like maybe they don't have a super healthy diet to begin with? Like maybe they're telling themselves that in their own lives and in their own ways, it's like, oh well, like it's not like I 100% healthy all the time, like it'll be okay, it's good enough.
Right. It's a refrain that I turned out okay. So everything that happened in the 80s and 90s must have been okay. um, that's n equals one. I do. Oh man. Yes. I think parents need to figure out what they want their kids to look like as adults. And that's got to be our motivation. Like I want to keep that prize in mind and that goal in mind. And as a mom, like my job is to raise kids who are sure of themselves, who can be independent, who contribute to society, who are not, the opposite of which is being a drain on society. I want to raise kids who to me, are deep in their faith. That's just me. That might not be everyone's culture, but we've got to think about that. And if have two people parenting, great. You got to get on the same page. Like I think that should be a massive conversation for parents: is what is our family culture? And if you can set that family culture and the kids understand, like, here are my boundaries, I'll say things like, Kimball's do this and Kimball's do that, and Kimball's don't do this. And Kimball's don't do that. Um, First of all, having that family culture and using phrases like that with your last name gives kids roots. And they're going to leave those roots. They might rebel as teens. Like, that's completely normal. But in order to have something to come back to, there has to be a thing, right? We have to create a family culture so that they know this is what our family looks like. And also, you are loved here at all times, right? So it's not, I don't teach my kids to cook or clean the house or mow the lawn, which my 10-year-old is just learning to mow the lawn. And it's hilarious because he misses all these stripes. He's like the most distracted kid. So it's a work in progress. But we don't teach him those things just so that like my to-do list is shorter. And I never want my kids to feel that way. I want them to feel like I'm giving them a gift of competency that they
Mm.
can carry into adulthood. I want them to feel like I'm giving them the gift of community and family culture and that like teamwork effort, right? Like we're all living here. We're all going to contribute, and the littler kids might contribute less, and that's okay, right? We grow into that family culture. And I want them to know that I'm giving them confidence, right? And so it's all, as much as I talk about high standards and high expectations, and I do think all families should probably just really examine their family culture and is it there and can we step it up a notch?
Mhm.
Maybe. That's my encouragement to you. But also it's got to be like a give and take. I talked about co-collaborating with the kids when we were creating the course. And I think we need to co-collaborate to an extent with the kids, not like let them tell us what our rules should be. But if a child's having a really bad day and they're just melting, that's not the time to say, you didn't wash your dishes last night, right? Like that's the time to just hold them and hug them and say, you know what, you're having a really hard moment. And I know there's those dishes over there. I'm actually I'm gonna go do those for you right now. Which is another benefit, honestly, Ella, of kids having life skills and having responsibilities is when they are having a very stressful time. Like my daughter just went through final exams. It gives me such joy that I can I'll make her bed for her so that she can come into her room and feel like there's a little bit of sanity in her bedroom while she's studying. And I'll maybe make someone's lunch for them where they're normally making their own lunch. That's like the absolute opposite of entitlement. Like how many kids just kind of like your brothers, like the house is always clean, mom's awesome, this is great, but they don't even know the work that goes into it. When the kids know the work that goes into it, you can now give them the gift of a break, and say like,
Fascinating.
I will make that lunch for you because you're having a really stressful week. But I couldn't do that if I always made lunch for them. It would just be normal. So that's actually like a really really weird random benefit to your kids having responsibilities is that you can have that sort of give and take feel and just really being attuned to them and understanding what they need, keeping the high standards, but with that like sponginess, I guess, that give and take.
I really, really like that. It sounds like what you're saying is like, as a parent, you identify the best that you can, right? Like,
Yeah.
given your values, given all the things that matter to you, you identify the best that you can, and you translate it into topics. It's like, okay, here are our family habits. Here's our family culture. Here's how we view money. Here's how we view religion. Here's how we view, all of these other things, and you introduce that to your kids, but not just in a way that like you introduce it to your kids so that they live it. You introduce it so that they know it as well and so that they understand it. Um, and by making them aware of, say, like, here are our habits as a family, here are the things that we aspire toward, here are the things that we care about, then they know, then they can not choose it, but then they can also choose it. And it was interesting too, whenever you brought up the fact that, like, it's not about life skills over anything else, right? Like, we're not instilling habits because it's like the best thing in the world and this should be your primary value. They're very, very valuable, but it's like it's in this flow. There's this awesome lady. Her name is Meg Thomas, and she talks a lot about homeschool. And she says it starts with the heart, and then it's the habit. And so, like what you were saying, where it's like when your kid is struggling, you focus on the heart, and you don't put the habit above the heart, but also the emphasis on the habit as like this core thing that is necessary for kids. What other pillars? So you mentioned finance, you mentioned cooking. What are the other pillars that are just like so core to building skills?
I like to make sure that kids have some good hands-on stuff to do, which of course cooking is, but if you can, figure out where your kids' passions lie, maybe they enjoy woodworking, maybe they would enjoy gardening, getting real dirty. Um, Bike maintenance and auto maintenance are topics we've covered. Again, these are really niche, but just in general, we wanted them to have hands-on. We talked about ownership a little bit, Ella, and I think that as a parent, giving your kids ownership of their health
Mm.
is a big one. Like, how many young adults go to their first doctor appointment by themselves and they're like, oh, they're like a little mouse. Like, I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to listen and like the doctor will tell me what to do. It's so empowering to feel like, okay, I understand how to fuel my body with food.
Mm.
I understand how to fuel my body with movement and sunlight and sleep. And I might not do it all the time, but at least I know it. And at least I'm starting to like take ownership. So we do a lot with taking care of oneself on the inside and thinking about that. Um, I think kids should probably have good hygiene and take care of themselves on the outside as well. In this day and age, they've got to have some tech savviness too. So we have to be talking to our kids about not only internet safety, but how to use, AI, the internet, the software tools that we have at our disposal to make ourselves better people and faster at things. My business coach actually teaches a workshop on AI in our current Life Skills Now summer camp. And he kind of says, he says AI should enhance who you are, not replace who you are. Oh my God, that's
Mm.
a really cool, yeah, it's a really cool way to look at it. So I do think our kids, and again, how many young adults and adults have trouble managing their time, both on devices and in general? So time management and organization of your space, organization of your digital world, organization of your time, huge, really hard for kids. I mean, especially kids who are have neurodivergence or who are on like the ADHD autism spectrum. That's all really, really difficult executive functioning stuff. It doesn't mean they can't learn it. It just means they need a little more time and a little more practice. But that's hard. That is so hard for parents to remember that, like, what now is natural to us does not come naturally to our kids. So, like, I think
Mhm.
that's a really important mindset for our parents is like, okay, yes, I do these things all the time, but how can I step back to square one and try to remember what it was like
Mm.
before I knew how to organize my desk or before I knew how to figure out how to get somewhere on time, and let the kids talk through that. I'm a huge fan of questions too. So like asking your child, okay, like what are we doing today? What's on the schedule? Whether you're, homeschooling, traditional schooling, it's summer, whatever. And then when do we need to be there? Okay, well, what time? How long does it take to get there? What time should we leave? Like this is a great exercise for kids as soon as they understand time, really. And what do we need to have with us? Well, how do you think we'll remember those? I ask my kids that all the time. How are you going to remember to take that? And so they're getting pretty good at like, oh, I'll put it next to my shoes, or I'll put it right. I'm going to go put it right in the van right now. Whoa, like what a skill to not be
Mhm.
forgetful, not be forgetting things all the time. Like I'm hoping, boys, again, I'm hoping that they can retain that as they grow up. But I'm trying to give them as much practice as I can where it's not me telling, but it's me asking so that their brain is the one working.
That's key. It's like you're building this muscle of common
Yeah.
sense inside of your kids, which like, I mean, for better and worse, like that's pretty hard. It's you have to have some sort of like a confidence inside of yourself. Back to this idea of confidence, but like
Yeah.
confidence in your ability to say, okay, is this about right? And confidence to also say like, you know what? No, it's not about right. Um, would you say that your kids have a pretty strong sense of common sense now?
Yes, they do actually. I'm feel so blessed that they all tend to choose good friends. I think that's a really great metric of your child's like critical thinking and common sense. Are they able to look at, the people in their social world and go, "Ooh, this kid keeps getting in trouble. Maybe I don't want to hang out with this kid." So I feel like that's where our kids they have all the choice. I can't tell them who to be friends with. And so it's been so far, we're 4 for 4. They really tend to spend time with great people. And some of them have learned the hard way. They've had some rough friends who have really hurt them in the past, but they've learned. And at this point, I feel like they're all making really good decisions on that.
I love it. I'm gonna hit you with a couple of rapid fire questions, just to end out our interview. The first one is when you have a kid that is, maybe they're older, right? And maybe they have shied away from certain things. Maybe they don't have a ton of life skills. Maybe they're more anxious, or maybe they have ADHD, or maybe they're dealing with something. How do you use this as a tool? How do you use life skills and engage them in a way that this becomes a tool that helps them to build confidence and kind of re engage their sense of like almost interaction with the world?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you said Meg said heart first, habits second. And I think that's how we can teach skills too, is if it's something that you're doing together and you're connecting heart to heart and mind to mind with your child or your teen, then, you know, you can give them sort of a safe space. It's like having your seatbelt on or having a parachute where you're doing it with them. And then you can encourage them to take over just part of it, not all of it, so that it's very much like training wheels on a bike. And I think to motivate older kids, getting accolades from people who aren't their parents is great. So any skill you're teaching, once you've like done the training wheel thing, if they can do that for others. So I always say like have them cook when grandparents are coming over or for a party or a potluck or something, because then you can say, "Oh, like John made this." And they're like, "This is amazing. That's awesome, John. I can't believe you know how to do this." Super motivating for kids and teens.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Second question, Why should families and parents prioritize this, especially whenever it might take longer, it might, be a little bit more difficult, you might have to go through a couple of struggle moments or, like, frustrating moments?
Yeah, two reasons, the practical and the philosophical. The practical is that, yes, it will take 5 to 10 more minutes here and there to slow down and teach your kids, but you get that time back in spades because when the whole family is helping, then you actually get I heard a podcast once that the guy was like, "You got to go outside and climb the tree. Like don't be doing the dishes all the time after dinner." And I'm like, "That only works for one day." Because then you have like all the dishes all the time. So for me, I'm like, if y'all clean up together, then the whole family has more time to go climb the tree together or go for, a bike ride together. And so I think the goal is family unity, but you get there by having family unity in the practical. And then the philosophical reason is just that I really do want my kids and your kids to grow up to be independent, competent human beings who contribute. Only way to do that is to give them skills, even if it's your 3-year-old knows how to fold a washcloth. Great, right? That's like a 30-second task to slow down and teach that 3-year-old. But when that 3-year-old takes ownership of folding every washcloth in every laundry load, they feel like hot stuff. And that's the foundation. Like it's just these little tiny bits of how do we give them competency and confidence so that they want to then do more.
I love that. And last question, what is a good starting place?
Oh, try to follow your kids' interests. If they are still at the age that they're showing interest, like our younger kids will say, like, "Mama, can I help? Daddy, can I be next to you?" Just a couple weeks ago, my husband was the bathroom project has been a saga. Let's just say, um, and my 10-year-old was finishing up some screen time, and he can have trouble transitioning. And I was like, oh, okay, I hope we can get him like off of his game without a meltdown. And I decided to just walk out of the room with him. And dad had like a tripod set up with a level on it. I said, Gabe, do you know what that tool is that dad's using? And he was like, no, what's this for? Boom. So he was in. And then he was helping dad hang some things and level some stuff. And it was awesome. So if you can figure out what your child's already curious about or how to make them curious
Interesting.
about something, yeah. Curiosity is awesome. Beyond that, and there's no like prescription. It's not like all 3-year-olds should do this. It's just what might they be able to accomplish? Something simple, little steps. It doesn't have to be big.
I love that. This has been so great and so practical, honestly. Like what you're doing here is not rocket science, which actually makes it almost more daunting sometimes because it's like, oh, it's just folding my laundry. It's just all these things. But seriously, all these things are so important and underrated for like how much they contribute to a person's overall life fulfillment and satisfaction. And whenever you're going into a family, like how many things are you making your kid have to relearn and learn um, as well, like in the hot seat. But this has been so great. I initially got introduced to you through Charlene Chambers, so which she's awesome. Shout out to her because she's just the greatest, and she also is an OpenEd family who does your courses. And she speaks very, very highly of what y'all do and the things that y'all have been able to help her family do as well. So, if anybody is curious about what Katie can do for you or about the things that Katie offers, we're going to leave a link in the description where she compiled some free, awesome videos for just you, the listeners of the podcast. And we'll also share that in the daily. So if you're curious, then you can go ahead and find that there. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
This was fun to share stories. Thanks, Ella.